Hey guys, welcome back. It's Talzi. Today I want to talk about one of the biggest reasons I see people struggle with conscious manifesting. Maybe you're just starting out, or maybe you've actually been affirming, visualizing, scripting, and trying every technique under the sun for months, or in some cases, some of you even years. And you're sitting there thinking, well, why doesn't any of this even seem to be working for me? I've tried it all, right? So if that's you, I genuinely think this video is going to completely change the way you look at manifestation, and I hope by the end also is going to give you that little mindset shift and that extra punch to whatever you've been doing, so you can finally see your reality change and reflect what you've been hoping and waiting for, right? Because I don't actually think most people have a manifestation problem. I don't think any of you do. I think that people have a conviction problem. And once you understand the difference, you'll stop asking which technique works better or best, and you'll start understanding why they all can and do. Because here's what I've found. Whether someone robotically affirms, whether they visualize, whether they script, whether they do sats, or whether they simply make one powerful decision, every one of those techniques or methods can work and does work for many. And I really want to make that clear from the beginning. This isn't a video telling you, if you have been affirming, to stop affirming. And it isn't a video telling you robotic affirming doesn't work, for example, because I absolutely believe and know that it can and it does. In fact, I know people who've completely changed their lives through robotic affirming. I affirm a lot. I use that. I do focused affirming, etc. I know people who've changed their lives through visualization, through scripting, through sats. And I also know people who've changed their lives completely just when they made one very powerful decision and they closed the door and never looked back. So this isn't about deciding which technique is right or wrong, or whether you're doing something right or wrong. It's about understanding why any technique works in the first place, because I think that's the piece often people miss. Now, some people will tell you repetition programs the subconscious or reprograms. Others will tell you repetition creates new assumptions. Others will explain it through identity. Personally, I don't think the label matters, because underneath all those explanations is the same principle. Every technique is simply giving you a way of repeatedly returning to one version of yourself, the version that has your desire. So the real question is not which technique should I use, but who am I returning to every time I use it? Because that's where the power is, guys. Not in the technique itself, but in the identity you're returning to while you do it. Think about it. Someone might robotically affirm, I'm chosen, I'm loved, SP loves me, SP wants me, everything always works out for me, etc., etc., thousands of times. And it works beautifully for them. Someone else repeats the exact same affirmations for weeks, months, in some cases years, and feels like nothing has changed. So what happened? Was one person better at affirming? No. Did one person have a better, more reprogrammed subconscious mind? I don't believe so. The difference isn't the words themselves, it's the conviction behind the words. Some people have already accepted, if I robotically affirm enough, I know it means it's done, right? That's an assumption in itself. That's conviction. The affirmations simply become like a vehicle through which they keep returning to that conviction, that identity, right? Someone else believes, when I visualize vividly enough, I know that this technique works for me and it's done. Again, that's conviction. The visualization simply becomes, again, like a vehicle, right? A return vehicle. Someone else believes, well, I've just decided and therefore I know it's so, I assume it's so, and therefore it's done. Again, that's conviction. Different techniques, same conviction, same assumption that it works, okay, as well, guys. So that's why I don't think techniques create your results. I think techniques become vehicles for your conviction, and conviction is what gives power to the technique. Now, this is where I think people accidentally misunderstand repetition, because repetition absolutely has value and it creates familiarity. So repetition reinforces whatever identity you keep returning to, right? So some people call that subconscious reprogramming, others called it building a new assumption. Personally, I don't think it matters what you call it, because ultimately, what's the real truth? It's just you repeatedly reinforcing the identity. And that's why repetition can be incredibly powerful, not because it's in itself magical, but because it keeps returning you to the same version of you. And that's why two people can use the exact same technique and experience completely different results. Now, I want you to imagine reality like a mirror, as we know, right? Most people think the mirror is responding to the affirmation. And I don't really think that's the case. I think the mirror is responding to the identity that's saying it, right, guys? The mirror isn't reflecting the sentence, it's reflecting the identity that is making that declaration, saying that sentence and deciding it's true. So if I stand in front of the mirror and say, I'm chosen, but actually I'm still identifying as the one who always gets rejected and I'm unchosen, what is the mirror actually reflecting? Me, not the words, right? The identity. And this is where so many people accidentally end up in a loop. They affirm, then they check the 3D. Nothing changes, so they affirm harder, then they check again. Without realizing it, reality is just continually reinforcing their identity, not the affirmation. So the circumstances then for them are deciding whether their affirmation is true or untrue, and that's backwards, because the mirror doesn't decide. You do. The mirror simply reflects the identity you continue returning to, who you believe you are, which is why I don't think the most important question is, should I affirm? Should I affirm more? Should I visualize? Should I visualize more? Or should I script and should I script more? Or is it working or not working? I think the better question is, who am I every time I do it, guys? Because the goal isn't to find the perfect technique or choose a different one. It's to consistently be the identity that has your desire, right? And once you understand that, every technique starts making a whole lot more sense, guys, because conviction isn't something a technique gives you, though it can definitely make something feel more natural. It's actually there to bring you back to your knowing. And that's where I think everything begins to change. Conviction, guys, is not a mood, okay? Now, this is where people misunderstand conviction. Conviction isn't waking up excited every day or feeling positive and high vibe all the time, and it isn't even pretending that you're not feeling anxious or that you're not frustrated or even emotional, because those things come and go. Conviction is knowing who you truly are as the source and deciding who you are as the identity, and knowing that because it's you that makes that decision, this must be so. Conviction is deciding who you are regardless of how you feel in the moment, and it's simply an inner decision like, yep, that's who I am now, and that's it. You don't need fireworks, you don't even need to feel fucking amazing, because conviction isn't measured by the mood. It's measured by the identity you've returned to. This is where so many people accidentally give their emotions way too much authority, okay? I felt anxious today, this must mean that my affirmations aren't working. I feel depressed, therefore I must be not in the right state. I had a bad day, maybe it's not working. But your reality isn't reflecting emotions that pass through you, it's reflecting your identity. So if you say that you have it regardless of any of that, because you're the source and the I am, then none of that shit matters, okay? And when I say I am, guys, it's not because I'm just trying to give you a lofty spiritual concept. I'm saying that you are beyond any identity, source, and God consciousness, and you're the one deciding what state you choose in the now moment that reality must inevitably reflect. And it is only you making that decision. And your decision to be that version of you and to affirm or do anything from that place is a decision that reality must reflect, guys. And this is also why affirmations eventually, if you do it this way, stop feeling like work, because you're no longer trying to convince anyone or even try to convince yourself. You're simply describing yourself. You know, think about your own name. You don't spend all day affirming it. You don't repeat it hundreds of times hoping you'll finally believe that this is your name. You simply know it, and you have the conviction that this is who you are. And you have that sense of conviction that you are because you said so, right? And so this is why I structure every reading, if you follow me for tarot, in this exact way. And I follow the same sequence when I tell you about manifesting. I don't begin with the affirmations about SP. I begin with the I am, the source, and I tell you from there to select your identity, which is your state. I ask you, who is the version of you that already has this thing? Then self-concept. What naturally becomes true about that version of you, right? In this area of life or in relation to SP and love. Then assumption. What is simply normal from that identity? And only then are we affirming or doing a technique? Because the affirmation isn't there to convince you. It's there to express the identity you've selected, guys. And that's why that kind of a sequence, or at least that base understanding, is going to make your manifestations more effortless and easy. Because otherwise, affirmations can accidentally become another way of chasing an identity instead of expressing it. Do you guys see the difference? So let's talk about what commanding actually means. Now, some people hear me say, command your reality, and they think I mean force, or control, or manipulation, or dominate circumstances, conditions, etc., right? That's not what I mean when I say commanding, okay? Commanding means refusing to negotiate your identity with the 3D. Let's use an SP as an example. Someone wakes up, affirms for an hour, checks Instagram, checks their text, checks tarot, checks whether they've been blocked, then affirms again because they feel anxious. So the words are, they love me, SP loves me, they choose me, I am chosen. But underneath, it's actually, I'm saying this, but I'm really saying, please choose me. Okay? So we don't start by changing the number of affirmations. So even in the case of a person that's affirmed 1,000 times that morning, nothing wrong with that. So we don't need to change that. We don't need to change those specific apps, but we do need to select from the identity. I am chosen, I am prioritized, I am contacted, I am pursued, and live from that place and affirm from there. This is simply who I am. And affirm and live from there. And from there, silence no longer means or equals rejection. It simply becomes, my outside follows me, this is who I am, and there's a natural expectancy that that silence will cease. Now think about money. Someone repeats, I'm rich, I'm rich, I'm rich, and they keep refreshing their banking app every 20 minutes, and every single time they make a purchase or get a bill, they have complete panic. Every number tells them that they're totally unsafe and things are not changing. So again, we don't need to affirm more or less in this case, right? But we need to look at the identity. I am secure, I am safe, money comes to me naturally. I am rich because I said so. And from there, they're in the awareness from that identity, and this is when their reality starts to reflect, right? Opportunities, unexpected money, bills are always paid miraculously, or they start making very different decisions because they're in a different identity. So again, the decision from the I am and the assuming from that place or affirming from that place or doing whatever technique, this is where the conviction comes from. So a little coaching moment, pause with me for a second and honestly ask yourself, when you affirm, what's actually happening underneath? And don't bullshit yourself. Are you expressing an identity that you've already selected and you're simply reinforcing it? Or are you hoping the affirmation gives you permission to accept that it's yours? Neither answer is wrong, guys, but I'm simply offering you awareness. Now, choose again. One identity, one assumption, one sentence, keep it ridiculously simple. Then everything that argues with it, put it straight into the fuck it bucket, as I always explain, guys. The timeline, the third party, the silence, the bank account, the old story, you're not denying that it all has existed or you've seen it. You're simply refusing to accept that as part of your now identity and what you're assuming from here. Then say your affirmation if you want a technique once, twice, or maybe you want to do it 1,000,000 times. Then guys, accept that that's enough. Accept that that's a done deal. Accept that that works, okay? Then go and enjoy your life, okay? Move about your day with this knowing and this conviction that what you've done is perfect. It's working. Live your life from that version of you who knows that this is a done deal, knows this is handled, can accept and assume that you have commanded something, not from forcing, not from convincing, and not from chasing, okay? Just from being. And so if there's one thing I hope that you take away from this video, it's this. Every manifestation technique can and does work. And it's not one technique is better, more powerful than another, but because every technique has the potential to return you to the identity you selected. So some people use affirmations, some people visualize, some people just like in a conversation, some people script, some people use SATs, some people simply do their decision and say it's done and don't think about it, right? So the same principle will apply. The goal was never to find the perfect technique. The goal is to consistently return to the version of you who already has your desire. How would they think? What would they do? What would they assume regardless of their outside? Because finally, again, your reality isn't reflecting the technique. It's reflecting the version of you who's doing it. And that's exactly why I created my 7-day I am reset, guys, not to give another manifestation technique, because if you're doing it fine, but to help you consistently return to the one thing that gives power to every technique you choose. Your I am, your identity, the version of you who already has your desires, because you know that you as source already do. Because when you consistently return there, every affirmation carries more power, every visualization feels more natural, every assumption becomes easier to hold. Not because you've become someone new, but because you stopped returning to who you thought you were. And so if you'd like me to guide you through that process, I've linked the 7-day I am reset below. As always, remember, you decide and the mirror reflects. I love you guys so much. I hope that helped, and I'll see you in the next one.